Cobb TV. Watch your life make sense.
Welcome everyone, hello and welcome to Ask the Kabbalist. With me as always, ready to answer all your questions, Kabbalist Dr. Michael Laitman.
Hello all.
Before we'll begin with the first question for today, I'll remind everyone you can send questions freely at any time on tv.Kabbalah.info. You go there to our Ask the Kabbalist page and you can submit video questions or audio questions or text questions. And the first question we'll start with is a text question. This is coming from Lisa from Kentucky. And she writes this: I read an article in the National Geographic saying that in the year 1830, there were 1 billion people on the planet. Today, there are 7 billion people, and 1 billion is the number of people who go hungry every day. So in 2045, the projected population is 9 billion people, and the question that the article raised was, how will we feed all those people? So how do you see this from a Kabbalistic perspective, and what changes would we have to undergo in order for us to feed everyone on Earth in 40 years from now?
I don't think that we'll be able to withhold everyone the way you say, or the way the demography experts or sociologists or economists predict. Because, first of all, I don't think we'll develop that way. Even though we're people, but nonetheless we belong to the animalistic world. And in the animal world, like you know, like among animals, among fish, the more food there is, the more they reproduce. The less food, the less they reproduce. And it's the same with us. You see, according to the divorce rate in the world, the changes the world's undergoing, the birth rate, it's actually falling. The more we develop in culture and education, thus our birth rate is decreasing. And thus, I don't think that there will be an explosion or that we'll experience such growth like we had in the past 150 years. And I'm also looking at something completely different, from a different angle. And I'm not looking at the demographical problem. If we'll be closer to nature, by being more similar to nature, it's the complete power of love and bestowal, where everything is in balance. If we too shall keep this balance, if we'll reach a state where we want to live in peace, in consideration, then we will reach a state where Earth will bear plentiful fruit, and we too, as a result of the nice and good attitude towards each other, will be able to divide it such that no one will starve or go hungry, and no one will want more than he needs in order to survive. And then we will be satisfied with everything, and we won't have to ever calculate how many billions are we. There will be place for everyone.
First, you're saying that you're seeing a completely different scenario. So in 40 years from now, you're not seeing 9 billion people on the planet.
No. What I'm saying is that, according to the current tendency, we've stopped growing. We see that on the northern hemisphere, we have a decline, a decrease in population. Europe, Russia, Northern America, Canada. We see it even though there is vast immigration into all those areas. even though many people come from the south, meaning from Asia, from Africa, from South America, from Asia, Africa, to Europe and Russia, and we see nonetheless that those that come to the north, they don't really increase the population. They too become kind of modest in their reproduction. And they too, the more they accept the whole modern custom of the cultural and industrial development, we see that also amongst them, the birth rate is falling.
You know, first you mentioned the immigration process. I also read an interesting article that says that in terms of space, there isn't no problem on the planet. And actually, even 9 billion people could be on just Texas. You could put them there.
Without any problem. Up to 200 billion people, Earth can withhold. There are even such calculations. The problem is, how do we treat nature? Are we destroying nature like it happens with that oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico? Or we're destroying it by different things, or really cut down trees. In short, there's a big problem with our attitude towards nature.
What changes would we have to undergo in order to feed everyone? Because obviously the problem is, you're saying,
no, that's impossible. You can't do it that way. We can't have changes in politics, demographics, geography, nothing of the sort. We have to change the relations, the attitude between us, and all the rest of the changes, the way we'll arrange the new society, will be a result of the relations between us, which will be in correspondence with nature. All in all, we have to achieve balance with nature, where we consider each other on the human level, where we consider each other as if we're one family, and not as if, because that's how we truly are. Because life, these days, open up our eyes, and we see that we're in a global world, in an integral connection with each other. And correspondingly, we have to see, where are we in this whole picture? If nature explains to us that we're all interconnected and the kind of connection is a bad one, and we have to have a good kind of connection to truly achieve love amongst us, so we have to understand that if we do not meet that law of nature, as a result, we'll have all our problems and troubles, and it won't help us to come to greater achievements in economics and in the financial system, or in growing fruits, vegetables, meat, and so on. It won't help. Nonetheless, we'll invert it as a result of our nature into even more harmful networks.
Okay, you mentioned the economic system as well. There's a video question here that is coming from Guillaume from France, and it has to do with that. Perhaps we'll move on to that video question from Guillaume from France, and then we'll continue talking about the subject.
My name is Guillaume, I'm from France, and my question is, do you think that Europeans will actually get a political system that is as strong as the American one and behave as a single country someday? Thank you.
I don't think that it's going in a good direction, neither in Europe and, by the way, nor in America. I don't think that if the Americans will pursue the same direction they're in now, they'll be able to keep their states united, connected. And you see how each one of them, both in Europe and also in America, are starting to behave in a protectionist way, isolating themselves, where no one cares about what happens with others and no one wants to consider others. Everyone has a very narrow and short vision and can't see a bit further. That's our developing ego pushing us so that we'll acknowledge its evil as quickly as possible and change direction. That we'll try to consider each other, for us to start thinking globally. We're around Earth, we're all interconnected, we're all inside nature, we're not above nature, and we have to do what nature dictates and not what we feel like, according to our evil nature, according to our ego. Thus, the way things are developing now, I don't think that we'll reach something good, in a good way, neither in Europe in the common market or in the common culture they have in Europe, will reach such an outbreak of hate that it might reach a third world war. And also in America, we can see it, and in Russia, everywhere actually, that the ego, when it breaks out, it brings to separation, and even one country will divide into many countries. And in America, we see that there are many states there, and everything there is ready for separation, and also in Europe everything's ready for separation, also in Russia, everywhere. Those are plenty of nations connected together. What for? Neither common culture nor education or anything. They can separate, and that's that. The law of hate that distances us from each other, it works such that we'll separate from one another. It's like, I had a friend, as if we all live together, we share everything. Afterwards, something happened. Then he already has his corner, I have my corner. Then we divide the apartment, we drift further away. He goes one place, I go to another place. The distance or the proximity between us, it is defined according to the inner distance or proximity, and it influences the physical realm. And thus, we have to see our inner corrections. That's what we have to do. And let's hope that we'll understand it. But that is the only thing upon which what happens in Europe or in America depends on, or in the whole world. Today in the world, we have something like 170 countries. You'll have much more, 400 or 500 countries, and that won't be enough. You see that people are distancing from each other. They can't keep families together. The children with the parents can't stay together. Couples are divorcing. Each one needs a separate room, a separate apartment. The person wants everything of his own, no one to bother or bug him. You see that still there are such countries where everyone's together in a clan. I see a truck and 200 people get on it and they all drive to work. I see a family vehicle,
With one person driving it. Yeah.
One person driving, and he can't take anyone else with him, even though it's very economical, but he can't. He simply can't. And thus, look what's going on in the world, and accordingly you can see the correction that has to take place.
You mentioned something that isn't very, a common thing in the Third World War.
Yes, but we see that separation, drifting away, drifting apart, brings to war. War is the natural result of the distancing between people. Because what happens actually, I'll explain it thoroughly. We want a distance from each other, and it seems to us that by this we balance our relations. We have this kind of a bad relationship going on, so according to how bad it is, according to the hate between us, we distance in order not to touch each other. You're there, I'm here, and there is a distance between us that makes sure that we won't kill each other, but you have your place, I have my own place, and that's that. Were it not for nature pushing us to be together, because it's part of nature's plan, everything would have been great, then really we would have distanced from each other and we would have gotten along. But according to nature's plan, we have to reach a state where we're all connected by love. That's the plan. Nature is drawn towards equilibrium, balance, all of it. You studied physics, chemistry, geology, anything.
Yes, in other levels of nature it's clear. In our level it's unclear.
Right. Exactly that. We've reached a state that we have to start treating each other well, like on the levels of the still vegetative and animate, also on the human level. We have to arrange society such that it will work in consideration and even according to love. The world is headed towards globality, towards everything being one, integral, united, whether we want it or not. That is the direction in which things are developing. And if we want to distance from each other and isolate ourselves, it won't help. It won't. Thus, even though we want to we want to protect ourselves through plenty of laws and give each a corner of his own and a car of his own and a computer screen of his own, won't help. Nature is stronger and will prevail.
Well, why does nature want us to become one? What's in it for nature? Why is it in nature?
That's its plan. That's the plan, to bring everyone to unification.
But I'm good where I am.
It extends from, I don't want to get into the wisdom of Kabbalah and the thought of creation, but I'm telling you, we see this law in nature. Why even go further? Why even go deeper in? We see that that's the law. If it's the law, then you can say whatever you want. Of course, I can bring you proof from the upper world, from the wisdom of Kabbalah and so on, but why? Even without it, we see this direction. If so, then that's enough. For sure, we have to go with it, and to the extent that we won't, we'll reach a certain degree of our oppositeness to nature, and that degree will burst out between us as war, and that's what happened in the past.
How do you prevent a war? How do we start a different direction?
Only correction. Only correction between us. Isolation won't help. Nature is stronger, and it will bring us together. It will push us together to be included in a single place. We have to relate to it very seriously, scientifically, in a simple manner, that this is the purpose of creation, this is the purpose of nature. We see a clear direction. If we go with it, we'll benefit. If we don't, we'll lose big time, and it's a shame.
Okay. We have a question here that perhaps touches upon love as well, but from a more perspective that has to do between in relationships. The question is from Dan. He's from Sherrill, New York, and he's asking whether people invented the whole idea of marriage and family, or was it the nature or the creator who created this institution of marriage? Like, is it something, I'm assuming that he's asking because today it's almost not happening correctly.
True. In the past, there was a need to get married because a male and a female had to come together in order to have children, and through the children, and instinctively, they wanted to be together, to have a household. Without that, they can't survive. A person, nonetheless, throughout life, he becomes weaker physically, and he needs help, and he is incapable of providing all his needs, and thus he needs more people around him, namely family, or even more than a family, a village, a clan, such kinds of organization. Thus, the instinct pushed people towards connecting with others. And as long as materialistically we needed such a warm environment of relatives, where the emotional power holds us together, a certain inner obligation, blood obligation, so to speak, through the mutual life, through the collective common property, mutual children. So we held on. Once we've developed socially and technologically to a state where we can provide all of our needs, we don't need a family. I buy ready food, I have a washing machine, I have everything of the ready. I can buy anything I need, any services. I have neither need for a family, for children, or for anything else. Besides, my ego grew to an extent to which I don't want to feel any obligation towards a wife or kids or anything else. I become more independent. I reject everyone. I can barely stand myself to bear other people. I don't want that. This is our nature. So there are two factors here that are aiding each other. It's technology and social life and everything that helps a person to be on his own and to provide for all his needs. Doctors, in short, everything. I don't need anyone. Yeah. On the one hand, and on the other hand, my ego can't stand anyone close. I can't stand anyone next to me. That I'll have to do something to give up my ego for something or someone, and thus we have divorce. We have plenty of people that don't want to get into that obligation. Making a family. Why? I can make children anyhow. I can have a different spouse every day or change spouses several times throughout life. And I can make children, but I don't really feel a need for them or an obligation towards them. And also, they don't really need me. And with their increased ego, they try to run away from their parents as quickly as possible. We have to see how things are naturally developing, because that's nature. Now, what can we change here?
Yeah, and what do you offer people? What do you suggest? To get married, not to get married, to not get into this mess to begin with?
According to the wisdom of Kabbalah, nothing besides the correction of our ego will help. Otherwise, bit by bit, we'll simply finish humanity altogether. Because if the ego will grow ever more, then we'll distance from each other to an extent to which we'll be so opposed to one another, so opposed to the global and integral system, that there will be a kind of a paradox, a collision between the integral system, which is the whole of nature with all of its parts, and human society that's included of small, egoistic individualists that don't want to connect, and these two systems can't coexist, and then there will really be an explosion.
It's interesting. I'm seeing, like, throughout this show today, from every question, we're analyzing every aspect of human life, and it seems like that ego is the cause of everything, whether it's the disintegration of the family unit, of countries, of economic systems, of political systems. You're showing how everything is caused by this same thing. So how don't we see it? Why isn't it that obvious to us?
Because it's very painful to see. It obliges us to do things that are against our nature. How can I? I can do any external thing, but the ego is my innermost thing. It's my innermost quality. And I have to change that quality. If I could easily change it, then I would. Simply tell me, where can I buy some medicine in order to decrease my ego, to arrange it such that it will be good for me and good for everyone else? I'm even ready to pay something for it, but you can't. That's man's inner work that he has to make in order to reach equilibrium with nature. And why? And the wisdom of Kabbalah comes into the picture here and says, if you'll do it, you'll reach a different world. Your reward is that you open up an entire, whole, and perfect, eternal reality, something beyond this world. You unfold the part which is now hidden from you, concealed from you, that part of nature, and you discover that you have where to advance to. That life doesn't end here with your body, but you keep on living, and you can now discover wholeness and perfection.
That's what we need. That's what we need to know. That's what we need to hear to be aware of.
And thus, the wisdom of Kabbalah unfolds itself, and we disseminate it in order to show people that we have where to go, that it's worthwhile treating our ego, so that upon it, by correcting it, we can rise to a different level of existence, where we reach freedom of the angel of death.
Okay, our time is just up. Thank you very much, Dr. Laitman, for this new, hopeful, bright view on where we need to go. Thank you for sending all your questions. We'll be here in the next show taking more questions. You can send them through tv.Kabbalah.info. You go to the Ask the Kabbalist page and you can submit videos or audio questions or text questions. We'll see you in the next show. All the best.